don't need to rise to the top of anything. In fact, I'm going to go over here and create my own category. So I'm really in a category of one. A good sign that you might be operating from this expert energy is if you feel like you're constantly fighting over breadcrumbs, if you're like constantly fighting to be heard, you're fighting for opportunities, you're fighting for the next client, you're fighting for the next Instagram follower. A leader is less concerned with that because they know they're standing in a category of one.
Welcome back to Glitter Mindset. I am your host, Aria Leighty, business mentor, entrepreneur, speaker, and creative consultant. If you are ready to sparkle up your mindset, show up big in the world, shine unapologetically, and you are not afraid to get a little bit messy, you are in the right place. Let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Glitter Mindset. I am so freaking excited to welcome today's guest, you guys. She is I love this, a soulful business and leadership strategist. And yes, amen, she is. She has a decade of experience helping businesses make bank. And she's also the host of, a global top 2% podcast, the Aligned Success Show. Welcome my coach / strategist turn good friend, Kelly Moser, to the show.
Oh my God. Hi, I'm so grateful to be here. What an exciting, I've been looking forward to this all day, all week. I'm so pumped to be here. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. It's always good conversations. I've been in your program. You have spoken to the mob when I owned that. You spoke to my mastermind just a couple weeks ago. I've been on your show. We're always just going to be collaborating forever and ever on all the things.
Forever. You cannot separate two fire signs that are meant to just
take over the world
and take over the world. That's right.
I love it. Well, let's kick this thing off with getting to know a little bit about you. Tell us about you and all of the amazing magic that you are bringing into this world.
Thank you. Yeah. Hello, everyone. It's so great to connect with you. I'm so grateful that you are listening. My journey, it starts at the very beginning. I had a very traumatic event in my childhood, and I had PTSD for the first 21 years of my life, and I had no idea. So I had a nice dysregulated nervous system. I felt like a hot mess all the time, but I am also an overachiever. I'm someone who copes with stress and copes with anxiety by doing more and achieving more and accomplishing. So if you can relate to that, just know that I am right there with you. It's definitely a difficult pattern to heal. So I took the traditional path. I went to the good school. I got the good job. And then one day my body just said, nope, this is not going to happen anymore. And I started slowly but surely working my way towards entrepreneurship, working my way towards coaching. And my professional background is in startup and corporate strategy and operations, which sounds really boring. And it was more fun than the title might suggest, but it was basically just helping businesses grow. And that's essentially what I do now, just on a more intimate scale with people that I feel really aligned to support, like people like Aria. So I have kind of blended the healing journey that I was on, working through PTSD, healing my nervous system, learning how to meditate, teaching others how to meditate, connecting with your intuition, all of those kind of softer skills, the more spiritual work, connecting with your values, really coming into alignment with the more, masculine. I don't know if that's the right word anymore to use, but the more masculine kind of strategic business operations side of my brain. So what I do now really beautifully merges both of those things that I used to think didn't go together at all. And it turns out they totally do.
They do. And you have mastered that beautiful alchemy, I have to say.
Oh my God, definitely haven't mastered it, but learning a little bit more every single week.
I love it. I love it. Can you tell us a little bit about that shift that you went through from being in the corporate world and doing all of that magic to leading you to really want to fully be in this entrepreneurial space?
Oh my gosh. So many factors went into this. It's funny. I had been growing a side hustle, side business while I was managing a very robust corporate and startup career that demanded a lot of me. I was working 70 hours a week on a very consistent basis. I was exhausted. The work was fun, but I didn't feel like I was operating at my highest capacity. I knew there had to be a balance that I could strike or attempt to strike where I had a little bit more freedom over my life, a little bit more agency over my life. I have no idea how long it would have taken me to really jump all into entrepreneurship if I hadn't had to pause and take care of my mom for 6 months, who was in very poor health at the time and has made a miraculous recovery.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that was a really tough time. Within the span of 3 days, I went from full-time employee managing a huge team for a very quickly growing startup to basically, I hadn't formally quit my job, but basically saying I cannot work at all right now because my mom needs full attention, full bedside attention, and full-time care. And that was my life for about 6 months. I was a full-time caregiver. Shout out to all the full-time caregivers. That is the hardest job in the world. Yeah. And I don't know how long or when, or if at all, I would have had the courage to say, you know what, I'm going to give my little growing side business everything I've got, because when the time came for me to actually go back to my startup job, I just couldn't do it. It just felt like I was so used to now having so much freedom, and not that, taking care of a sick loved one, you have all that much freedom, but my lifestyle was different. It felt so weirdly, even though I was so deep in it with my mom, like really taking care of her, really in the trenches with her healing, it still felt more aligned than any job I'd ever had. So I knew that there was something misaligned about the jobs that I'd had, and I knew I couldn't go back to a job. So I took a chance, and I've been just kind of full steam ahead growing this thing for the last few years.
I love that. I love it. So if you're visualizing that, Kelly, that was like, nah, not going back. I'm going to try this out. You're revisiting with her. What do you wish that you could like tell that version of Kelly?
Oh my gosh. She was so scared. She was terrified. I had only really watched, there are no entrepreneurs in my family. Everyone is very traditional, blue collar work, some kind of corporate work, but there's no entrepreneurship. And I didn't have someone that I knew very closely who could model what was possible for me. So I would just go back and give that poor girl a hug, because she was shitting her pants. And it's really scary to leave behind something, even if it's, what I've found in my life is that it's so much easier sometimes, not all the time. Sometimes it's easier to walk away from something that's bad. It's really hard to walk away from something that's okay, that's good, but not great. And I know you know that too. It's really hard to walk away from something that's good, not great. And I would go back and tell her that you are doing the right thing. You're following your intuition. There is great, not good out there available to you. And it's going to be painful. It's going to be hard. It's not going to be easy all the time, but it is going to be so worth it.
If you didn't make this jump, what do you think that you would be doing right now?
Oh my gosh. I think I would still be working in the startup world. I don't know if I'd still be with the same company, but I really did love getting my hands dirty with businesses who are in that scale phase. So the company that I was working with was scaling from 2 brick and mortar locations to 7, and all of the, operational hiccups and strategy gaps that come with that. I really actually enjoyed that stage of business growth. So I think I would be doing pretty much exactly what I'm doing now, but with maybe a stable paycheck with a little bit more predictability. I think I would just be doing it in-house for somebody rather than working as, a private consultant and coach with a bunch of different clients that I support.
Well, I have to say, thank goodness that you are doing exactly what you are doing and that you are on the journey that you're on right now. Because from a client side, it has just been a really transformative experience to work with you and be in your energy this year. And I've learned a lot from you just over, just kind of being in proximity to you, watching you work with the people that are in our container through our one-on-ones. I have loved all of the different workshops and stuff that you've done. So I'm grateful personally that you are doing it. I think one of the biggest takeaways that I have walked away with is really learning how to dive into the like voice and magnetic messaging. And I recently had you speak to the next level group on this, and you touched on something that I thought was just like, it's too genius not to share here on the
Oh boy.
podcast. But you actually talked about the difference between being an expert and a leader. And I really want to dive into all of this. Can you share with us just what the difference is between expert and leader?
Yes. Oh, I love this question and I love this topic. So thank you for bringing it up.
I was like, we got to get into this.
We got to get into this. So I think if you have an expert and a leader standing right next to each other, it might not be immediately obvious what the differences are between them. But if you are an intuitive person, if you're tuned into the energy of things, you can tell when you are in the presence of a leader. You just know that there is an energetic difference about the way that that person shows up. And I think if you really get out your microscope and you look at the behaviors, the patterns, the way these people talk, what they do, what they spend their time and energy on, you will find some pretty important differences. I think the first is that experts rely a lot on what they know. So they are very comfortable in teaching mode. You'll see a lot of their content is just information, just giving you every bit of information that your brain could ever possibly hold and then some. I think a leader is someone who relies more on their values and their intuition to guide them. So these are people who also have the knowledge. It's not to say that a leader doesn't have the knowledge or the lived experience, but they don't rely on that. It's not a crutch. I think experts come from this place of, look at all the credentials I have. Look at all the information I can teach you. Look at everything I've done. Look at all the awards I've won and the accolades and this and that. And I think sometimes they stray a little bit away from, or shy away from rather, from their values and from their intuition. Another big difference between a leader and an expert is that an expert is kind of trained and conditioned to rise to the top of their category, right? Like, I'm going to be the best at what I do. And that's what a lot of coaching is, what a lot of advice tells you is, learn how to kind of rise to the top, pull ahead, get to the front of the class. A leader is someone who's willing to say, I don't need to rise to the top of anything. In fact, I'm going to go over here and create my own category. So I'm really in a category of one.
Okay.
So the experts, a good sign that you might be operating from this expert energy is if you feel like you're constantly fighting over breadcrumbs, if you're like constantly fighting to be heard, you're fighting for opportunities, you're fighting for the next client, you're fighting for the next Instagram follower. A leader is less concerned with that because they know they're standing in a category of one. There's no competition because nobody else is you. So that to me is the biggest difference. And I have this little like cute saying that I think really brings it home. An expert fights over breadcrumbs. A leader bakes her own bread. It's like, this is what I'm doing over here.
Yes.
I don't care what you all are doing. What I'm doing might not make any sense to you. I also think a leader is a little bit more willing to be polarizing. And not to say that they're like trying to stir the pot about things, but they're more comfortable having really strong convictions and saying, I understand where, how some people think of it this way, some people think of it this other way. An expert's more likely to be very diplomatic and kind of share both sides of the story. A leader's like, great, you think this, here's what I think. And I'm going to really root into this conviction that I have. And I think there's a big energetic difference there.
Yes, I love that. And the way that you painted that picture in the workshop and now it gave me this energetic shift of like almost permission to step into more of that leader role, because I've always kind of used like, oh, be an authority, be an expert, be a leader in your industry, kind of like, all synonymous with each other,
Mm-hmm.
But having that and you laying out those differences really almost like gave me permission to be, because it can be a little bit lonely being a leader and you're like watching all these different experts and all of that stuff. So it gave me more power to like really settle into that leadership role and space. So I love the way that you break it down.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, you're so right. It can be lonely to be in that leadership space, but it doesn't last for that long. The loneliness doesn't last because people will start to recognize what's Aria doing over there? Everything Aria shares feels so different from anything else that I hear. Aria has so many fresh perspectives. She really shows up in a unique way. And that's kind of how, we talk about being magnetic and magnetizing people to you. You do that by deciding that your values are the most important thing, and you're going to show up for your values before you give a shit about being at the top of whatever or being put up for whatever award. And you're going to magnetize people that share your values. And that feels so much better, being recognized by even one person that really feels so aligned with who you are and what you care about and what values matter to you. That feels so much better than being recognized by 1,000 people that you don't really connect with on that level. So I'm always for that route. Be lonely. It won't be long. Your people find you there. And then Absolutely. You get to, live in this really fun party with people that are really aligned with your values and who you are at kind of a soul level.
I love that. So for those that are listening right now and they're like, well, shit, I'd be baking my own bread. I'm a leader. I'm going to step into this more. How do you recommend those leaders and entrepreneurs start zoning in on their leadership messaging?
Yeah, I think positioning yourself as a leader is easier than you think if you know what to pay attention to. So there are 3 things that I really like to, and I shared this with the group as well. There's 3 things that I really encourage everyone to get curious about, do a little bit of journaling on. The first is, what are your values? Like, what are the things that you actually care about? What are the moral things? Not just, I care about, this, I care about red bottoms. Like, no, you don't. You care about, what is it? You care about luxury. What are those things that you really care about? What are your values? A good way to figure out what these are is to ask yourself, when have I been the most proud to be who I am in my whole life? Think back to your proudest moments where you were like, I'm so proud to be me. What are the values that had to rise to the surface in that instance? So if you were super proud of yourself for passing the bar, maybe hard work is a value that really matters to you. If you were super proud of yourself for the way you showed up for a loved one who was going through a hard time, maybe compassion is a value that you really care about. Maybe it's empathy. So think back to the times when you really felt proud to be you, and think about what were the values that you were bringing to the forefront in those situations. The next thing I like people to think about is, what is your value? So this is different from what are your values. Your values are the things you care about. Your value is really what you bring to the table. So this is kind of where we're getting back into that expert category. The expert gets stuck in, what is my value? What is my value? What do I bring to the table? But this is what makes you the best at what you do. This is the skills, the lived experiences that you have, the things that make you so good at what you do that you can bring to the table that nobody can argue with. The skills, the natural gifts, the things that you've created in your career. And then the last thing, or your business, the last thing is your leverage. So this is not just what you bring to the table, it's also who you bring to the table. So this is what makes you stand in a category of one. This is your unique story. These are the unique things that you alone have created. These are the unique communities that you've built. These are the assets that you've created. This is what makes you be able to stand in that category of one. So for you, Aria, it's thinking about, if you're going to write your bio to be a guest on a podcast or to submit a pitch to a magazine, if you write your bio, your leverage are the things in there that make someone go, oh shit, this person is the real deal. So maybe it's that you created and sold a company. Maybe it's that you have a top 10% podcast. Maybe it's that you built a community of 20,000 on Instagram. Maybe it's that you built your email list to whatever. These are the unique things that you have accomplished, the unique things that you've created that give you leverage. And it's also the things that make you say, not just this is what I bring to the table, but these are all the people that I bring to the table with me because of all the amazing work that I've done. And you, as the networking queen, know the power of who you bring to the table.
Whew. I feel like everybody just needs to pause this episode for a second, really get clear on all of that before even moving forward. So that is a lot.
I know there was a lot there. Sorry.
No, I love it. This is exactly why I jumped right into the questions, because I'm like, we got limited time. Let's tell them every freaking thing to know. Yes. So, okay. They paused. They took some time to write out all of this. now they've like really identified all of these things. What is the next step from there to getting it out into the world?
I think just experimenting. I talk about experimenting all the time. The power of messaging is that you can change it whenever you need to change it. So figure out what your values are, what your value is, and what your leverage is. And start to piece together messaging that feels really unique to that really honors those things. And then just get out there and start talking, start telling people, start messaging your programs, start messaging your memberships, your masterminds, your courses with some of this messaging that's really deeply rooted in your values and that really highlights your leverage and what you bring to the table and what you've created. And that also really highlights the skills and natural gifts that you have that you are packaging to share with people. And when you just start experimenting with your messaging, you will learn what resonates for people. So really pay attention to, okay, I shared this piece of content or this kind of content, and this is the response that I got from it. Is that the response that I was hoping for? Do I want more responses like this, or do I want to try something else? So be really just observant about what comes back to you when you put certain kinds of messaging out, and just take note and let it be an ongoing experiment where you iterate and you say, okay, this piece of messaging is really resonating for me, but it's not really landing with my dream clients and my dream customers. I wonder what I can tweak to make this even more clear, to make myself, even position myself as even more of a leader here. And just be curious, because messaging is one of those things. Aria and I were just talking about this earlier. It's one of those things that you have a lot of trouble seeing for yourself. Everybody does. I do. I have trouble with my own messaging because, and someone just said this to me yesterday, you can't read the label when you're inside the bottle. So sometimes you're just so close to your own work, you're so close to your own magic that it really is hard to distill into messaging. But that's why you just have to get some support, even if it's just asking a friend or your partner to read something before you post it and say, how does this make you feel? Or what action does this inspire you to take? What does this make you think about me? How does this, what picture does this paint of who I am as a leader? And run it by them, and then figure out if you need to make any tweaks before you share it, and just keep doing that until you really land on, the messaging that establishes your authority, builds your brand, drives conversion, because it's all there. You might just need to, give it a few spins around the block. It's like, it doesn't always come together right away, and that's okay.
Yeah. I love that. I was really focused before on like this messaging that was really like too many big words. I was trying to be, impressive, flamboyant, like big and bold. And you really helped me simplify a lot of like the problems that it's solving, the people that it's for, and really like creating the messaging that in my stories are getting way more replies or way more responses or way more interest, in things where it's like I had already been talking about all of this stuff and it just like went over people's heads. And then people are like, wait, what is this? What is this that you're working on?
Oh, I'm so glad. I think the big kind of like cosmic joke with messaging is that the simpler you can be, the more powerful it is. Like everywhere else in our lives, exactly to your point, we've been taught to be, the most eloquent and the most, use big words, like be flashy. Messaging really is just like explain it as if you were explaining it to a 5-year-old. That's what your messaging should be. What on a practical day-to-day level is this going to solve for them? How is it going to improve their lives in a very practical way? Like give specific examples and actually say what you're thinking. I think a lot of people like try to finesse themselves out of simplicity and just say what you're thinking. That's exactly what people need to hear, because you need to speak their language too, which is often quite simple. Like the language we're speaking to ourselves and our brains is very elementary. We're not using huge words. We're not trying to be fancy and flashy. So the more simple you can be, the more direct you can be, people are going to feel like you are living in their heads, which is exactly what helps establish trust and, makes them feel like you're someone that they want to learn from and work with.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that it really helps us dismantle a lot of the stories that we have in our heads, especially for entrepreneurs, of like just what it takes to be taken seriously or to be professional. I think a lot of us have been modeled the one, white cis bro dude way of,
Yeah.
what it looks like to be successful or to make an impact or to be taken seriously or to get to the top. And so a lot of people are like, well, I can't do that. Just knowing that you're able to speak as yourself and to show up in your fullness and, just right the way that you would have a conversation with somebody. I think that it takes a lot of pressure off of people, and it also just opens up more room at the table for people to come and be leaders.
Oh, absolutely. The only thing that matters is, can you provide results? Whatever result you're saying you can do. Can you do it? Great. If you can, you just need to tell people that you can do that. That's all messaging has to be. It really can be so simple. And I think you're so right. It really does a little bit democratize, it levels the playing field because everyone can speak in conversation. You don't have to have an MBA to have great messaging. You just have to be able to talk to a friend.
So when we're thinking about having these different conversations and being able to share a message, I'm like a big proponent on like long form content because that gets those conversations out. But I have seen that you are really focusing on a specific way to get a message out. And I think that, obviously I have some love for PR and speak on that. But the way that you have been talking about this, like, way to scale your business off of social media and really step into that leadership role, I would love for you to like get in on this little resource and this focus that you have been bringing out.
Yeah, thank you. I only have zoned in on this because it has worked for me so well, and that is being very strategic about getting onto podcasts that are really aligned with who you are, what you do, what your values are. It has been, I used to be a big Instagram girl. I have recently been so annoyed with engagement, algorithms changing. It's brutal. And to me, it's just not smart business strategy to rely on a platform that we can't control and just one of them. So I've been really trying to diversify how I get out there, how I share my messaging with the world. And podcasting feels very natural to me. I have my own podcast, but for me personally, the biggest bump in my brand awareness, the biggest bump in my revenue growth has been from guesting on other podcasts. So that's what I'm really excited about right now. It's a strategy that I know not a lot of people feel comfortable exploring because it is so mysterious. And I think people just don't have a great understanding of what the podcast industry is like unless you have your own show. So I'm really excited about just teaching people how to leverage this amazing opportunity because this is a space that is wide open right now. And you don't need a lot of followers. You don't need a 6 or 7 figure business. If you are somewhere different than you were a year ago, then you have something to share. And we all are we're all somewhere different than we were a year ago. So we all have something to share.
I think that is like the number one thing that I hear, especially because in Show the Fuck Up, we do talk about, press and features and press releases and podcast interviews and all of that. Mm-hmm. And people are always like, who would want to hear from me? Or I don't have anything, to talk about. And it's like, oh my God. So many people want to hear your story. And, there's not enough diverse stories out there, which I feel like this kind of opens the doors to hear from more voices that wouldn't typically be out there saying the same, 5-minute miracle bullshit on podcasts. Like your power smoothies. Like, no, tell us like the real shit behind the scenes,
Totally. It is also a very vulnerable platform. And I think that works to a lot of people's advantage, like people like you and me who are skewed towards the more real side and don't want to show up perfect and polished all the time. I think there's such a nice opportunity to just be real. And I really appreciate that about the space. So
I love it. I also find that just having the opportunity to be on podcasts and get asked questions that the host is finding really interesting about what it is that I do, it like pumps me up and I'm like, damn, I actually am good at this.
Totally.
I do know shit in my industry, or I am, an interesting person. It really like fuels you to be able to have those types of conversations because we don't often get to talk about, what we know or answer questions about our expertise or the things that we are a leader in. So I think, I mean, I'm a words of affirmation love language girl. So it really like, I need to constantly be like, oh my God, that is such a great idea. And I'm like, oh, it is? Cool.
I love it.
So if somebody is ready to start getting on to podcasts where they are like, maybe they'll dip their toe in and see what you're talking about, what this world is all about. You have a beautiful resource for this, don't you?
I do. Oh my gosh, you are just the best. I have a brand new course coming out called the Hell Yes Guest. It is meant to be your one-stop shop for getting really serious about podcast guesting in a way that builds your business and doesn't just become a really fun hobby, because this can quickly become just a hobby that doesn't actually drive your business goals forward. So my intention is to really teach you how to make this a profitable strategy that's super effective that you can execute in just a few hours a week. So definitely come connect with me on Instagram if you're interested in this course. It's going to be really great. I'm going to take the first cohort through starting in a couple of weeks. We're going to get started. So if you're interested, come chat with me on Instagram at kelly.moser, and I will give you all the details, everything you need to know.
And she do be responding to those DMs. That's how we connected and how we ended up working together, is that we just started like DMing, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is my person. I need to work with her.
I love you so much. And I love DMs. I live in my DMs. My address is 321 in my DMs. That's where I exist.
Me too. That's like the only reason I keep showing up on Instagram is like, because that is how I use it, as like just a social tool and conversating. And it just feels like you can really have some really good conversations with people, and it's not as stuffy, as sending an email or whatever. Sure. So, all right. Well, can we end this with some rapid fire questions?
Let's do it.
Favorite thing to drink?
Oh God, I'm so boring. I only drink water. I can't drink caffeine. It gives me a heart attack, but I also drink red wine. So I'll say water and wine.
Water and wine. Love it. Ultimate pump up song.
Oh, Don't Stop Me Now by Queen.
Ooh, okay. Last thing that you've read.
Oh God. Oh, I've been reading the Bridgerton books, the really saucy Netflix series. It's all started from books, and I like them. They're good.
Love it. Favorite self-care investment?
My $10 massages at my local nail salon. I go in like 3 times a week and get myself a $10 10-minute massage, and it is life-changing.
Like a foot massage or a hand massage?
No, the chair massage, the back massage.
Oh, okay.
Oh my God. Tell me you have to go get one. You will be so happy.
I need massages. I'm a better human if I have a weekly massage.
Me too.
Bucket list travel spot.
Thailand.
Oh yeah. One word to describe your personality.
Ooh, warm.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that this is going to be a really helpful episode for the listeners. As we wrap up, what is one last thing that you just want to share today? A message, a quote, something for the listeners to just kick off their day with?
Just decide that now is your time. Whatever that means for you, now is your time to put yourself out there. Now is the time to take a rest. Whatever you have been putting off and saying, I'm going to do it. Just do it. Just try. You never know what's going to happen. It could lead to something really amazing. So just get out there and do whatever it is you've been wanting to do.
Amen. I love it. Thank you again for being here. And thank you guys for listening. Check out the show notes for all the ways that you can work with Kelly. And I will talk to you all soon. Thank you guys so much. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to Glitter Mindset. I would love to continue this conversation on Instagram at Aria Leighty. Please tag me with any takeaways, and if you don't mind, leaving a review. For more information on sponsorship, guest opportunities, or working with me as a business mentor, please email hello@glittermindset.com.